Welcome to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk, a show about ancient coins from the viewpoint of a seasoned professional with nearly 30 years' experience. Here's Aaron Berk and Mike Nodelman on the Ancient Coin Podcast.
And that sound of the gong means once again it is time for another episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast. Often started, hardly ever finished. I'm Mike Nodelman, your host.
I'm Aaron Berk.
And we really do have a treat for you tonight. We've got some auction results, or not results, but some auctions that Aaron's got his eyes on. But more importantly, we have a special Halloween treat for our listeners, as well as a pearl of wisdom to make you a better numismatist. So, Aaron, tell me what it is in the auctions that tickled your fancy this week.
So I got to talk about NAC, premier auction house in the world for ancient coins. And they are coming up with their fall edition. They have obviously their fall and their spring. And we've talked about that many times on this show. And so their auction is going to be November 7th and 8th. And again, the first auction on the 7th is going to mostly, I believe it's all the Sheikh of Qatar, the last kind of remainder amounts of his material that is left over. And if you've listened to other shows, you've probably heard me talk about him. He kind of came on the scene around 2009, ended in 2012 or so. And his very last auction before he died was the Prospero sale, which was a very successful sale that was run by Baldwin's and the New York group and at the New York International. And it brought, I believe, $21 million, which was quite a bit of money at the time.
Sure.
And the Sheikh spent $15 million at the time, I believe. Oh. And so the Sheikh liked to overpay for a lot of coins because he didn't care what he paid. So he got into a lot of pissing matches with people. And so a lot of what NAC is held up till the end are a lot of the Sheikh's biggest mistakes. And so so anything that is ex-Prospero, you can find them in coin archives, but you can also, I believe, if you go to like the New York sale or Baldwin's, you can find the Prospero sale and bring up the prices realized and look up each lot. And so I would, it's interesting if you see what the Sheikh paid for some of these things. And the first one we're going to talk about is lot number 27, which again, most of us can't afford these things, but they're fun to look at. And so we talked about Naxos in the last show we had, because there was actually two in the Morton and Eden sale. And that one actually was pedigree before 1970. This one does not have such an early pedigree as that, but it's still a nice coin. And that one in the Morton and Eden sale brought about 550,000 pounds hammer. So you want to figure $750,000, something like that. Well, the Sheikh paid $800,000, I believe, for this coin, hammer. So over $1 million. It's not going to bring that kind of money. It's just, there's no way. If the last one only brought 550,000 pounds, this one's not going to bring more than that one. I'd be very surprised if it did. But again, this is a city of Naxos. It's the island of Naxos, still around today.
Super well struck.
It's one of the highlights of anybody who has a serious ancient Greek collection has to have one of these in their collection if they can afford it. I'm talking world-class collections. Not most of us, like I can't keep one of these in stock, so it's this kind of thing that if I ever, other than going to the auction and actually handling it in the viewing room, the only way I'm going to get my paws on one of these is if I bid for a client on it.
Yeah.
So, but Dionysus, god of wine and other things, but primarily wine.
Dionysus Bellinger?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And so, he's connected with satyrs, which drank wine and partied and had sex. And so here you have the satyr drinking from a kylex, which was used to drink wine out of. And so that's exactly what he's doing on the reverse of that coin. So really still a very beautiful coin, and I would really watch a lot of NAC now has videos, which is something I love. And that's probably why they're not doing viewings in the United States for this, because they do have the videos now online. So if we go to the next lot 53. So it's an unusual, weird coin. This is a rare coin. They don't come up, and I like talking about weird coins on this show.
This one's really old.
So before Philip II, the father of Alexander the Great, and the consolidation of the Macedonian tribes, you had different tribes that were issuing coins. And so this one, either from Methone or Stera, and I might be stating it wrong, but anyway, it actually was the birthplace of Aristotle. And but before that, in Greek, in early archaic times, this city actually fought against the Persians and Xerxes in 480 BC, and was an ally of Sparta as well. And so, but Aristotle was born here. And so later, when Philip II came along, Philip II actually raised the city, rebuilt it up so that he could court Aristotle to make him a teacher of Alexander, his son, Alexander the Great, which did happen. So Alexander the Great was actually a tutor or learned under Aristotle. So very, very cool. And so you have, unless some of these coins are very figurative in the way you look at them until you know what you're looking for. And so here we have a boar running along the top, and you have some flowers along the bottom here, or in a circle, and then an incus on the reverse of the coin.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool coin. Something that doesn't come up very often. You see them, but they're not in this quality. So
do you think that the estimate on this is close?
I think it's going to go for a lot more.
Okay.
I think that it could go. I mean, it's these very rare types, and anybody who collects Greek that has enough money to spend, they're gonna. It's one of those things, they don't come up very often, and so of course you want the best, and you want the obscure stuff, and this is the kind of stuff that really tells history. Before Philip II and Alexander the Great, it really tells the story of the Macedonian tribes, and there's lots of different tribes that were issuing. Duronis is another one. There's lots of different cities that were issuing during this time, and they all have their story to tell. And so it really does, show what was happening at the time. So I find it, it's going to go for a double estimate, maybe more. Maybe it only goes for 15,000. You never know. Auctions are a crapshoot. You never know what's going to happen.
Never know until the hammer falls.
So we're going to still skip that one that we're talking about earlier. So we're going to go to lot 88. So this is the bronze coin that's issued by Magnetes, which was in Thessaly, and it was a Greek tribe, another Greek tribe in Thessaly. And they're actually mentioned in the Iliad and of Homer, and they were part of a Greek army that helped besiege Troy. And so really, really cool history during its Greek existence. This is in the Roman period. It was said that centaurs, and here we have a centaur playing a lyre, and on the reverse you have a ship or a galley. And so it was said that centaurs were actually came or originated from this city in this region. And so that's, of course, why they are worshiping them on this bronze coin. And I love cheap bronze coins like this because they really are amazing. And it's something, a lot of silver coins, typically, unless they're really scarce, obviously are rare, but most silver coins, you see the same iconography of the cities over and over and over again. But on bronze coins, you get a lot of obscurity.
Is it just
all the time.
Is it just the photo, or is this coin really thick?
Bronze coins in general are thick. If you want to go to the video, you can actually watch it from the side view.
Yeah, because I was going to say, this thing looks like it's a good, half a centimeter or centimeter.
I mean, it's
thick.
small. It's only 15 millimeters.
Sure.
But most bronze coins are relatively thick. So, I mean, not really
Yeah,
thick.
no, this doesn't look quite that thick in real life as it did to me in the.
Right. But it's substantial when you hold a bronze coin, for
Sure.
sure. But you can see the edges definitely got some thickness to it. So, anyway, and I just love coins like this just because now, it might go for $1,000. Maybe it goes for 2,000. It's hard to say, but it's also XBCD. BCD, if you don't know, that's Basil Dimitriadi. He was a very famous Greek collector. He's still alive today. He sold a lot of his coins at Bank-Loy in the early 2000s, I believe. And this came from one of his collections. So when they say BCD Thessaly 1, 1192, that's kind of what they're talking about, generally speaking. And Bank-Loy is not to be confused with Lloyd Numismatics. They're completely different companies. Lloyd Numismatics came around way after Bank-Loy went out. They parted ways with the bank that was running them in Zurich. The gentleman, one of the guys who was at Bank-Loy was Alan Walker. Alan Walker, when Bank-Loy dissolved, he left, and he was part of Nomos when Nomos started up. And then later on, Lloyd Numismatic came onto the scene, probably trying to piggyback off the Lloyd name, which I'm sure that they've done quite well with, but it's not the same company. So little numismatic history for you guys.
There you go.
If we go to the next coin, lot 203, I love coins like this because they're not portrait coins of Roman emperors. So here we have a coin of Octavian as Augustus in gold. And here it says Caesar Augustus on the obverse of the coin. You have two laurel branches, which are basically traditional symbols of victory. And laurel wreaths were the same thing. So, of course, you're going to, so basically you have that on both sides. You have victory on both sides of the coin, essentially. And I just find coins like this really, really cool. And they are rare. They don't come up too often, but it's a really cool period. And Augustus really just tooting his horn on both sides of this coin.
And yet no portrait, so he's not tooting his horn that hard.
It's tooting pretty hard.
Well,
he's like tooting doubly. So, and if we go to the last coin, we have a coin issued by Galba, and why it looks so crude is because it was actually not minted in Rome, but in Carthage in Africa. And so there was actually a usurper that had taken over Carthage. His name was Claudius Macer. And if you look at Claudius Macer coins, they're very rare. When they come up, they go for big money. But Claudius Macer had the same kind of style. And so obviously it was the same mint workers, possibly. And so they kind of has the same style. SC generally is not on silver coins, I believe. And so it's kind of unique to the Carthage mint on the reverse of this coin. And so and what I find really interesting is the fact is that even on really rare coins or rarer coins of rarer emperors, meaning my father always says that that unsuccessful people mint rare coins and successful people mint common coins. And it's totally true. And if you look here Galba was around for just a year or so, and we still find tons of his coins in existence. And not always the most expensive coins either. So it just goes to the scope of how many coins they were minting at the time.
Yeah, it's totally true what your dad says, though. It's like, because if they're around for a very short period of time, there's generally not a lot of coinage.
Yeah, I made a joke to him once because he said that for my whole career. So I've been listening to it for over 30 years. And he said to me one time, he was signing one of his books, the 100 Greatest Books, and he made a joke about it, his signature being so common because he signed so many books. And I said, well, you know what they say about successful writers.
There you go. That was good.
and he just broke out laughing. So it worked out really well in that situation. So anyway, that's the NAC sale. A lot of fantastic coins. The second day is mostly Roman gold, I believe, but really check it out, guys, if you get a chance. Again, most of us can't afford these coins, but like museums, we go there to visit, to look, to study, and to be better educated numismatists.
There you go.
So that's the whole point of it. Right?
It's always more fun to look at the really nice stuff anyway.
I agree. But it doesn't mean that's why I brought up that cool bronze coin, because there are really, and I'll say it again, there are always really cool bronze coins out there. And so especially in Greek, Greek silver these days have gotten really expensive, especially the high grade stuff. You can get some really nice high grade bronze coins for not a lot of money. And so I still think that that's the way to go. If you don't have the money to spend on Greek silver, go Greek bronze. There's tons of it out there. There's a lot of obscure cities that don't show up in silver, and you'll actually have a lot more fun. So
that's an additional bonus pearl of wisdom for tonight.
There you go. So that's going to bring us to our Halloween section, Tales from the Coins.
So here's our Halloween special. Roll it, Smokey.
We have our dun, 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 dun.
Are you enjoying yourself?
I think so. Halloween. Kill, 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 kill. Kill, 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 kill. Kill, 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 kill. Anyway, so going to the Halloween section. Mike, are you on the first slide?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So have we spaced in and out?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So the reason I brought up that coin, it's actually those figures are actually probably derived from Artemis, the goddess Artemis, and later these are Hecate. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but they transformed. They were actually deities that were associated with witches, ghosts, and curses. So that seems to fit with our Halloween theme. So Mike,
certainly would be of the day, and it has a kind of Charlie's Angels theme to it.
So if you want to go to the next slide, Mike.
There you go.
And then maybe
pentagrams.
Pentagrams. And so in ancient times, pentagram was really just a stable, strong unity symbol, and so showing the 5 points. And so of course it got adopted later for other reasons. Makes me feel like playing Ouija board there, but I know it's not the same thing. And then Mike, if you want to go to the next slide, we got pumpkins, baby.
Yeah, we do have pumpkins for a while.
Where'd they
go?
Then we got apples. How about them apples? What do we do with apples?
Bob for them.
We bob for them. So this is a Cycladic
That kid is going for it, by the way.
He is. I love that one.
Yeah.
I grabbed that one. So this is a coin of Melos, Stater from 460 to 450 BC. Kind of looks pumpkin-like, but it's an apple. So, and then Mike, if you want to go to the next slide.
Gourd?
We got gourds. Holy gourd. And this is actually on either Judean or Sicilian Hellenistic period from Jerusalem, possibly hemidram. Circa 132 to 130 BC. And gourds at this time were probably used as rattles, which makes sense.
Sure.
If I keep my gourd long enough, I make it rattle.
Musical instrument.
So Mike, if you want to hit the space bar, or the thing, you might get a little strike of lightning here.
Yeah.
And then going on to the next slide, we have Medusa.
That is one ugly woman.
She is. And it kind of associated with Gorgons. And so very snake-like in the same capacity. And so this is a coin of Cyzicus and it's an electrum coin. It's stater, and all the coins we've mentioned Cyzicus before. All the coins of Cyzicus have a tunny fish below, and as you see, if you go to the next slide, Mike, we have Sybaris, the Hounds of Hell, and of course, here's another coin of Cyzicus with the same tunny fish below in a stater, which is electrum is a gold silver mix. So it's actually a portion, and depending on how much silver in it, you can get from a silvery color all the way to a gold color, and they made them in different denominations.
This is just a cool coin.
It is a cool coin. It's a really cool coin.
Really love Cerberus.
We do. Now, Mike, if you want to go to the next one, we might scare you a little bit.
Marilyn
Possibly.
Manson.
But, and then after getting scared, we gotta possibly have a drink, I think. You know.
Except don't drink through a straw.
No, but that pumpkin is sweating.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely,
I think he's sweating.
It looks like it's not his first.
It is. And so if we go to a Halloween party, we all drink, right? Some
responsibly,
of us anyway,
hopefully.
So if you go to the next slide, Mike, we've got to drink again with Naxos tetradrachms.
Of course. Who else?
Because of Dionysus. We know. We've already studied him earlier in the segment.
He is ready to go. He's ready to party.
He always is. And so if we want to go to the next slide, Mike, we got candy corn, guys, or corn, you know. I don't know if I want any of that stuff to eat. They say they sell 20 million pounds of this a year at Halloween. That could be a myth.
It's like junk silver. It just gets pushed around from place to place.
It's possible. It's possible. But here on the coin of Tarsus, on the above, you can see the corn just above Zeus's arm there. And on the reverse, we have a Republican coin with a ear of corn in front. So there are our corn on ancient coins as well. So if we go to the next slide, Mike, I found spiders. I don't know if it's spider or an octopus, but we're going to go with spider. I believe this is a coin issued by Gupta in the 6th century AD in bronze. We're going to go with a spider.
We're going to go with spider, and you know why?
Why?
Because it suits our purpose.
It completely suits our purpose, and I already ate my calamari for the day.
There you go.
So, so if we go to the next slide, Mike, with Halloween, there's always snakes coming out of pumpkins.
Why
That's
did
just
it
the way
have
it
to
is.
be snakes?
Why did it? Did Indy say that? I
Yes,
believe
he did.
Indiana Jones did say that. So of course we have Julius Caesar, elephant coin with a serpent sticking out in front. Could be a serpent, could be a snake. We're going with snake on this one. And then
Could be a
coin
really
is
tall caterpillar.
Next coin is a Claudius Aureus with a serpent in front of the victory. And the third coin is we probably have a coin of I think of Gordian, probably Gordian or Caracalla. I can't remember who this is. Provincial coin with Hercules on the reverse fighting a serpent on the reverse of this coin. And so, Mike, if you want to go to the next slide, just because I love Pegasus, he may not have anything to do with Halloween, but I figured witches fly, so do Pegasi. So let's go with that.
Why
and
can't
Mike,
I?
And just like the football games, let's have our flyover, please.
Yes, we did. That is amazing.
There we go. There we go. And Mike, let's end this wonderful slide presentation with me doing what I do best, and that is being the personality that I am.
Yes, you are. It's always entertaining.
Always entertaining. And so can you guys guess who I am? I don't know if it's popped up yet, but eventually it will, and eventually I will be no other than Julius Caesar.
And there's his coin.
And there's his coin. Right in the middle of my chest where I was probably stabbed with those very daggers.
Probably.
Probably. So that is my stab at the Halloween ancient coin circuit.
That's a bad pun. That's a really bad pun. I don't know. I'll take a stab at it.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, so that was.
So anyway, so happy Halloween to all of you who celebrate Halloween, and for the rest of you who don't celebrate Halloween, then keep your doors closed because supposedly 20% of you will not answer the door when it's wrong.
And children will torture you, and that's just fine.
That's just fine.
That's just fine.
So that's going to bring us to our pearl of wisdom, and today, and I've brought this up before, is that really if you study fine art, it will really further develop your numismatic eye. And especially if you go and you study ancient art, primarily. And so a lot of these, like even the Naxos tetradrachm was said to been copied or maybe even done by the artist Durus, who actually produced Attic vases in the 5th century BC. And so a lot of his satyrs kind of look like the archaic Dionysus. And so if you go and you study some of the Greek vases from the period and some of the great artists, you will see the same, and you realize what the greatest, or the sculpture from the period, Greek and Roman, you can really see that portraiture, that the way that the eye or the nose or the chin is done, the way it pops on a coin, it starts looking like the best art starts looking like sculpture on the coin. And so once you develop your eye for what is great art, then finding great art in coins becomes much, much easier.
Well, I think that art is art, and coins are art just as much as anything else. It's more of a medallic art. It's more of a sculpture type art, but there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of carryovers. And, oddly thinking about your dad, it's funny because, one day I'm sitting there putting out gold in the front case, and, I'm looking at a St. Gaudens, and I'm just looking at it. He stops and he's like, who designed that? And I'm like, Augustus St. Gaudens. He's like, no, it's not that. And he starts pulling out his 100 Greatest Ancients book, and he pulls up a picture of this ancient coin that had basically, that same eagle, that same walking liberty. And it's like, this is where it comes from. This is the history of it. So, it is just an eye for art. And I think that kind of stuff will translate well from one genre to another. And that, when your eye improves, your eye is going to improve. That's, it's going to help.
Yeah.
You.
And that statue actually that's copied from, there's a Greek statue. I don't remember if it's in the Louvre or the British Museum, but I've been there and seen it with it, with its arm outraised and the leg back. It's from a Greek statue. And
right.
So it's really fantastic. And when you start to see, so anytime you go to a museum, guys, and again, developing your eye and having art transcend from the antiquities to the coins, it really does pay dividends for you long term. The coins tell their story, but the art is the same. And so I think it's really important to know how to have your eye and develop over time. A lot of people will look at coins. One question somebody asked me the other day is why do you have a dealer represent you in auction? Well, if somebody comes to me and they say, is this a nice coin? My eye is much more developed than somebody who's been doing this for a year or two. And so I'm going to see something in what I know is out there because of the decades of doing this that your eye is not going to know about. And so you'll, as a collector, if you do it yourself, you may find yourself buying coins that you're going to later regret buying because you didn't realize that there were better coins out there. So besides the other reasons why people use a dealer, that's, piggybacking off of their eye is another reason beyond all of the other attributes you get, like hiding, very high net worth people like to hide themselves from the auction houses and other people, they don't want anybody to know that they own these things. So I protect them because the bill of sale is through my company, not to the person. So they hide themselves. I also deal with, customs and being able to deal with all the pitfalls of that. So there's lots of good reasons, but my whole point of that was to talk about the eye and the fact that my eye is going to be much better. And I now have clients that I've worked with for 25 years who now have a good eye because we've worked together for so long and their eye has developed over time. So it's if you need to speed up that process, go to museums, guys. And you probably do anyway. If you're into ancient coins, you probably already go to museums, but really study that sculpture, really study that portraiture, and that artwork, and go to look at the Greek vases as much as the sculpture, because the Greek vases will tell tons about the style. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the die cutters were those artists or derived from those groups.
And let's face it, it's like a second opinion is usually valuable if you have somebody who has a background in art, whether it be purchasing art or creating it. I think either one of those are really valuable insights, and they will, just through experience, give you a viewpoint that you probably didn't consider. And that's where all the money is made and lost.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, I don't know how many people will, once I start working with them, they'll have me come look at their coins, or they'll show me their coins. And there's always coins in there that they shouldn't have bought. Always. Always. So,
Well, if there isn't, then why are they hiring you? Sounds like they don't need you if there isn't.
yeah, well, some people just want to do it themselves. You know, they
Right.
think they're saving money, but they're not, honestly.
Right.
Unless they're just, you know, there's some collectors that are really fantastic at doing this, but they've maybe been doing it for a really long time, or they're just a natural at it. You know, some people who are into collecting other art forms, not coins, and then they move into coins because they already have that insight and that artistic eye, they probably would do okay. But again, you don't know what's out there unless you study, or you look at lots of catalogs, or you go and you look at the auctions to see what's out there, to see how good a coin style can get. I still see coins today and I'm like, holy cow, I didn't know that it could exist that nice. And so it does happen even to the best of us. I mean, one of the I heard my dad not long ago, within the last 5 years, and they said, "Are you going to ever retire?" And he said, "No." And he said, "No." And they said, "Well, are you still excited about numismatics?" And he said, "Yes." And you know why?
That's why I'm not retiring.
And he said, "Because I still, after doing this for 60 years, I still see things every day that I've never seen before."
Yes.
So that's coming from somebody who's been in it for that long.
Yeah. There's always something new to learn.
Mm-hmm.
There's always,
and that's why, like in the last episode, we talked about that there's always another coin. It's true. There's always another coin. There's always going to be something you didn't expect. There's always going to be something, you know, that your want list has that, and then you see something else and you're like, oh, well, I got to have that. I didn't know that existed. So, you know, I think that's kind of the fun of numismatics also at that time. And I also believe, like, one of the reasons why I think I have a leg up on a lot of numismatists as far as artistic quality is because I started out in antiquities, and I did antiquities. I've done antiquities for my whole 30 years, but I started working in the ancient coin field 20 years ago. And so the first 10 years I just did antiquities, and I developed a pretty good eye for that. And so I came from a different avenue. And so
there's a lot of sculpture in the antiquities end. There is a lot of it. A lot of
sculpture, and also I dealt with a lot of Greek vases, tons. And so you do develop a good eye, and that does help you develop good characteristics of what you're looking for in an ancient coin. And so I think that's important as well. So the other thing is, you know, before we ended the show, Mike, I wanted to talk about something I saw that I thought was really kind of crappy. And that is, we've talked about, you know, patrimony before, and I saw an article that a friend of mine just sent to me, and you guys can look it up. So the Cleveland Museum of Art is suing the assistant state's attorney in New York because, and this is Bogdanos, I forget his name. I'm not a big fan anyway, but he has 18 people working under him just looking for ancient art, and they're the ones that confiscated the gold-eyed Mar in New York, which they had the right to do because, you know, there was some fraudulent stuff going on.
Yeah.
No, there was fraudulent stuff going on with the auction house with Roma.
Well, that's what I mean. But it's either legit or it's not, and it's not.
Correct.
And that's what happened.
And so what they did is they basically said that there's a Roman, it's like 6 feet tall Roman bronze statue, has no head, but they believe that they think it's Marcus Aurelius. And so it's Roman, and it's the best piece that Cleveland has in the Roman sculpture department. They bought it in the 80s, but it had a pedigree to the 1960s. And so I was always told that the line in the sand was pre-1970. That means anything before it's from the UNESCO treaty. So anything that is pre-1970, if it's proven out of the ground, out of the source country before that date, it means museums and institutions can buy it. It's free game.
Yeah, we were under the impression that was a hard line.
That's a hard line. And so now they come up with a thing called, it's called site what is it called? Site. I can't, it's like site perspective or site something. And so basically they're saying that if they know, they can figure out what site it came from, what it was taken from, then, and it's from Turkey, because Turkey has a law in their books from like the 1870s, which really they just pulled out of their rears. And it came up during the, there was a Cycladic piece that was on display at the Met since the 60s. And then when the gentleman went to go to sell it, was selling it at Christie's, it brought 15 million, and Turkey said they wanted it back. And they knew where it had been for 100 years.
Yeah, and they never did anything about it.
And they never did anything. And they ended up losing the case because the judge was like, you could have gone after it all this time and you didn't do it. Right. So it all comes down to money.
Sure.
Is really what it comes down to. Site specific is what it's called.
There you go.
And so they're saying that, so they came up in New York court and they said that they wanted to confiscate this Cleveland masterpiece because they said it was site specific and they knew in Turkey where it came from, even though it had a pre-1970 pedigree. So they wanted to confiscate it. And Cleveland took it off display, and now they're suing the state's attorney, saying that that's a load of crap. And they said that they normally have returned things with this assistant state's attorney, but in this case, he's wrong, and they're fighting it and they're suing him, and good for them.
Yeah, and good for them.
And I asked somebody recently, I thought that was the line in the sand. And they're like, well, they're moving the goalposts. And so I think they're moving the goalposts because you got a guy like this that they like to have big numbers. And if they can get something like, when Cleveland bought it, it was worth I think they paid like 1.8 million for it or something. And now they're saying it's worth 20 million. So that's really what it comes down to. Because it's worth $20 million today, they want to confiscate it.
Sure.
Well, I mean, I think they're doing themselves a really just justice.
Well, they're doing a bunch of people a huge disservice. I mean, that's,
They are. And honestly, I think it's terrible for the art world. People go to museums to view things where they live. Not everybody has the money to travel to Europe or to the Middle East to go see things in source countries. And if you go to those source countries, they have mounds of material. They don't need everything. And a lot of things weren't stolen. Now there was things stolen in the 80s, and that stuff, if that's looted, it goes back. If it's proven, it should go back. But anything that's pre-70, that should be it. There should be conversations.
Well, you have to make a decision and stick to it. I mean, that's really what it is.
And there's probably arguments for and against and all this stuff. But ultimately, like if you look at the Parthenon marbles, so Lord Elgin, he had the agreement from the Turkish government, they ran Greece at the time, and the Parthenon was actually an ammunition dump, and it was being bombed at the time at different junctures. And so Lord Elgin came in, he loved art. He probably paid off the Turks, and that was the running government at the time. You can't say, well, that's not the Greek government. Well, Greece didn't run their country at the time.
Right.
So they acted with Lord Elgin acted with the
authority,
with who is the authority at the time.
Yeah.
And brought the stuff back and probably saved it. And now Greece wants it back.
Well, because they want money.
Well, they're building this beautiful site, and they want all of it to be back in Greece. And
they can buy
I understand that it's a national treasure, but at the same time, like, good luck trying to get that back from the British Museum. That sells tickets.
But they can buy it just like anybody else. It's like, you don't own it. Won't. You're not going to be able to just confiscate it. So buy it. Right.
And then like in Egypt, they talk about all the looting in Egypt. Well, and all the stuff that's in museums. Well, Petrie, who was the head archaeologist at the time in the 1890s, and so forth, in turn of that century, he had the okay by the Egyptian government. In fact, all the best things that he was digging at their okay was to go to Cairo. And then the other pieces were amongst the other people that were funding him at the time. It wasn't like he went in just stealing stuff. I mean, he had the okay. And you can say, well, they were corrupt. Well, guess what? They're corrupt today too.
Yeah.
Not much has changed.
There is a long history of governments saying one thing and then decades down the road changing their mind and wanting to renegotiate. And there's really not much you can do at that point except renegotiate.
Right.
It's basically dealing with a hostage situation because,
Right.
you have no choice.
Now, the good thing, guys, is some of you are sitting here listening today and worried about whether the government's going to come after your things. They're not. Your things are not national treasures. They want the 20 million, the $100 million pieces, because that's what sells tickets to museums. That's what the FBI and these courts, they want to come out. They like to beef up their numbers anyway. So like we helped the Polish Museum of Chicago get back like $1 million worth of autographs once that were stolen from them. And then the FBI came out and said it was 5 million. So they beef up their numbers. It just looks good to the press. So if this piece from Cleveland, they say it's worth 20 million. Maybe it's worth 20 million. It's probably only worth 10 million.
Yeah.
So they're just beefing up the numbers again. So
kind of trumping them up a little bit,
I mean, we see it all the time, like when they confiscate like dribbles of crap that they get from stuff from people that bring in things illegally into the country. Like last time I think I saw was like they confiscated some stuff at one of the airports. I can't remember. And I don't remember what auction house it was. And it was like a Macedonia under Roman rule and some bronze coins. And they said it was tens of thousands of dollars. It was maybe it was $800 to $1,000 total. But they're like, these are tens. I mean, It was crap. It was crap.
Yeah.
But again, for the same reason why an unexperienced collector should use a dealer to piggyback or get ideas on what's good art and bad art. The general public doesn't understand that stuff is available. And so of course they think anything that's over 2,000 years old is worth $1 million already. So it's playing on and guess what? The archaeologists only care about themselves ultimately. I mean, I think, look,
they're not doing it for altruistic means, that's for sure.
And there's archaeologists out there that are newer breed that are much better and want to work with dealers and collectors. There was, back in the day, I got a big Sumerian collection that was collected in the 1930s, and I literally had letters between the collector and the Oriental Institute of Chicago from the director of the Oriental Institute in the 1930s saying in letters back to the collector, can you ask the dealer in Iraq where his Sumerian tablet was found? Everything was shared, and nothing is shared today because everybody's afraid and because it's all illegal in source countries.
Well, not only that, but information is money nowadays.
But, nothing was lost. None of this and all of this information is getting lost now. And they can try to cut the head off of Western collectors, but it's not going to stop the Chinese. It's not going to stop the Arab countries. There's plenty of countries out there that don't care. And a looter is not going to care where they go sell their stuff as long as they sell it.
You're never going to shut down black markets because it's not a function of the supply, it's the demand. It gets pulled from the other direction.
And guess what? The demand gets higher and higher because like that pre-1970 date, which, okay, they're trying to get the sculpture back. I think they'll lose. I don't think that they'll have to give it back. But everybody's going crazy over pre-1970 coins. And so the prices are going through the roof. And so that just stimulates more of the black market because they see the prices. You could be living in Turkey or in the Middle East and they get coin archives and AC search just like everybody else. And so they see what things are selling for and they don't care. They don't understand, maybe they have a clue that it's pre-1970, but if you get all of these collectors at the top of the food chain fighting over the most expensive coins and they're bringing great, huge prices, then it's not far-fetched to think that some smuggler is going to smuggle some coin into some country and sell it for half and still be
there's money to be made. There's people that'll do it. So,
and so it's really a difficult place we're in right now. But it seems like the whole world is that right now. So no matter what you're talking about these days.
Those kids. Yeah.
So let's just talk about Halloween some more. So
hold on a second. There we go. Back to surf our way on out.
Exactly.
So I'd
that's
like
our
to
36.
That's 36, and I'd like to thank everybody who has anything to do with this. Our fine sponsors, the lovely people that make this all possible. Yes, Dionysus Bellinger and all of his descendants. Yeah, that guy's ripped. So thank you to all that helped. Thanks to our sound producer Ian, and we'll talk to you next time on the 37th episode. Got anything
Thanks,
for
guys.
us?
No, I'm good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. So long.
Thanks for listening to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. We'll return with another episode soon. Meantime, you can join our private group on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search the Groups tab for Ancient Coin Podcast Discussion Group and ask to join. There you can become part of our community, where we share and discuss ancient coins, as well as the show, the ancient coin market, auctions, or just to give our own opinions on things in order to learn together. Join Aaron and Mike again soon for the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.